In our formative years, many of us, entranced by the excitement of our first experiences of love, fantasize about a reality where our love is not unrequited. Oftentimes, however, reality delivers a harsh wake-up call. Your fantasy was just that. Your love goes unrequited. No matter how perfect you believe you are for your prospective partner, they do not agree. When this happens, we should learn from it. We should grow. Doing so means you enter into adulthood as a more rounded, kinder, and ultimately more desirable person. But in the tragic case of Hayley Anderson, we see what happens when someone doesn't, or refuses to learn, these important rites of passage. Viewer discretion is advised. I bring you true crime, disturbing stories, and other things that you may later regret knowing in at least 2 new videos every week. Please do join our quickly growing Dark Case family by hitting subscribe now and turning on notifications. Our love and respect goes out to those that knew and loved Hayley. Hayley Anderson was born on May 9th, 1995 in Westbury, Long Island, New York. She was the elder sister of Madeline Anderson and daughter to parents Karen and Gordon. By 2018, Hayley was a 5th-year student at Binghamton University. There she also worked at the Jasmine's coffee shop located on campus. She was due to receive her degree in May of 2018. She already had a job secured at an emergency room in Long Island. According to her friends, Hayley was a dedicated worker who was also kind, pleasant and sensitive. Hayley also had a passion for music. On Thursday, March the 8th, 2018, Hayley was now 22 years old. She stayed up late with her housemates with whom she played board games and drank alcohol. They were now all in their last year of school. They were looking forward to graduating and to experience the real world that awaited them. The friends finished up just a few minutes before 4 in the morning and then went to bed. Josie Artin, who was Hayley's roommate, woke up just a few hours later. She went to check on Hayley in her bed, but Hayley wasn't there. However, due to the fact that the friends were now all independent, all adults, this did not really raise any concerns.
Nobody really saw or heard from her the entire day. There were several attempts to contact her by phone, and she didn't return those calls, which they thought was peculiar, but it really didn't seem to be an issue.
We weren't super worried at that point because, Hayley's a big girl. We don't need to keep tabs on her.
Later on the same night though, she started to get worried. Hayley was scheduled to meet Josie and other friends at a bar. Hayley was dependable, and if she said she would meet you somewhere, she did. However, on this occasion, she did not show up. Josie also noticed that Hayley hadn't published anything on her social media sites at any point that day. When she tried to call her, no one answered. All of the friends' text messages remained unread. However, using the application Find My Friends, Josie and one of Hayley's other roommates were able to track down Hayley's iPhone. It was shown to be at a property in Oak Street. This property was owned by Orlando Tercero, aged 20. Orlando was also enrolled in a nursing school. He and Hayley had dated on and off for a little more than a year whilst they were both students. Although Orlando was born in Miami, he spent his childhood in Nicaragua and later moved back to the United States to pursue his education. He was a smart student who studied throughout the week, but when he had free time, he enjoyed going out with his friends and having fun. Pretty standard student stuff. Michaela Tapali, Josie's other roommate, and Josie proceeded to Oak Street to check on whether Hayley was there or not. However, the girls weren't to know what had happened there just a few hours before. Earlier that day, the Oak Street property was the subject of a call to the police. They were asked to do a well-being check on Orlando because his sister had received a troubling text message from him and wanted to make sure that he was okay. At this time, the police tried to contact Orlando, but no one answered the door or their phone. It didn't appear like anyone was present when they arrived. When Josie and Michaela arrived, it did not appear that anything at the property was out of the norm. However, when they knocked at the door, just as the police did, there was no answer. It still appeared like there was nobody there, but something in their gut told them not to give up on their friend. They located a window that was open and the two friends climbed in. They walked through Orlando's home looking for any trace of Hayley's phone. Instead, as they entered Orlando's bedroom, half hidden beneath the blankets of his bed, they discovered Hayley. An almost unbelievable situation to find themselves in. The girls could not determine whether Hayley was still alive.
I didn't know for sure that she was dead at the time. She just was so pale, you know.
They placed a call to 911. A few minutes later, after arriving at the home, the police and emergency services personnel determined that Hayley had indeed passed away. Passed as a result of compression to the neck. After searching the property, it was clear that Orlando was no longer there. But was this the result of a kidnapping, or had he fled on his own accord for other reasons? Police investigations quickly revealed that Hayley and Orlando had a romantic connection on and off, but it was Hayley that ultimately decided to discontinue the relationship. Orlando wanted a more serious and committed relationship, but Hayley was not interested in anything as serious as that at that time. She did, however, intend for them to continue their friendship, but Orlando was not happy with that prospect. The news of Hayley's passing quickly spread in her community.
She was just such a bubbly person, opened up to anyone. She was literally like the greatest person ever. She never didn't have a smile on her face.
She did an internship at a hospital here on Long Island, and she told me about all the operations that she witnessed. Tragic loss. I realized it was her. It's just the bottom fell out. Really, very upsetting.
She was always the one who was the most sensitive and supportive friend ever.
One co-worker said, "She was a very good girl. She was friendly, joked around. We had a good time together. Everybody is sad. A lot of students came to New York together and they cried today. They were all so close," she said in tears. 6 months earlier, at a gathering that took place on September the 15th, 2017, Hayley and Orlando both attended. Orlando was observed shouting at Hayley after she rekindled her relationship with former lover Kevin Ocampo. This apparently made him very upset. Orlando believed that Hayley should have no other romantic interests but him. However, Hayley reiterated to him that she did not want the same things as him, but that she did still desire to continue their friendship. After the party, Hayley and Kevin spent the night together at her apartment. When Kevin awoke the next morning, he discovered that the tyres on Hayley's car had been slashed. Hayley went to the police to report the incident, citing Orlando as a suspect, but Orlando denied having anything to do with it. However, everyone knew that he was guilty. Because the damage was greater than $600, criminal charges would have to be brought against him. Hayley, being kind, didn't want Orlando to get a criminal record and lose his spot at college. So she decided to drop the charges in exchange for payment for the tyres. Now that Hayley had passed, the police looked deeper into Orlando. Those close to Hayley told the police that Orlando appeared to be obsessed. He would drop by her apartment unannounced and sometimes drive by as well. He did his best to never let her out of his sight. However, Hayley's kindness prevailed. She didn't want to be cruel, and she still kept in touch with him. She didn't want him to feel as though he was being socially excluded. Police now gained a better understanding of what happened on Hayley's final night. How exactly did Hayley find herself in Orlando's home when she was believed to be safe in her own bed? Police were aware that there were a lot of security cameras located in the neighbourhood, as well as outside of Orlando's house. They reviewed the footage and discovered that Hayley and Orlando entered his house together. At this time, Hayley appeared to be okay. She was up and walking. She entered the home seemingly of her own free will. After a few hours had passed, the tape showed that Orlando had left the house alone. After that, he proceeded to a nearby drugstore, where he bought 2 kinds of sleep aid medication, NyQuil and melatonin. He then headed back to his house. The surveillance footage showed that he exited the property once more, 7 hours later, and he then proceeded to walk down to the basement of the property. The investigation led the police to suspect that Orlando made an attempt on his own life in the basement at this time. They discovered a rope as well as several hooks. However, they were under the impression that he failed, and he had instead fallen and wounded himself. They also discovered what they assumed to be a message left by Orlando, which was written in Spanish. The English translation read, "I'm really sorry about this. I never felt I could be capable of doing this. Father, I'll see you soon." Disturbingly, Orlando's father passed some 5 years earlier. Police believe the letter was not only a farewell note, but also a confession. The surveillance footage showed Orlando leaving the residence with luggage later that day. Police then traced his path to the JFK International Airport. There he embarked on a flight to Nicaragua. It was discovered that Orlando held 2 citizenships, one of which was American, the other in Nicaragua where his mother still lived. Due to the fact that he held this dual citizenship, the authorities in Nicaragua were not obligated to extradite him to the United States. In spite of this, US authorities charged him with murder in the 2nd degree. They did this in the expectation that he would be extradited to the United States so that he may stand trial there, in the country where he committed this dastardly crime. The task of locating Orlando now fell on the shoulders of Nicaraguan authorities. And only 5 days since Hayley's passing, Orlando was tracked down to a hospital in the city of Leon.
When Orlando Tercero was picked up by police in Nicaragua, they found a Nicaraguan passport on him. Now, while the Binghamton DA works on getting him extradited back to the U.S., we understand that it could take months to do so because he is a citizen of both countries. We're live in Westbury, Long Island. Magdalena Doris, CBS 2 News.
He had attempted once more to take his own life, which resulted in him sustaining injuries that required medical attention. It took the authorities in Nicaragua well over a year before they were satisfied that they had sufficient evidence to prosecute Orlando and send him to trial. This process was slow due to the fact that there was a lot of back and forth between authorities in the United States and Nicaragua. US authorities were surprised and dismayed to learn that Orlando would not be extradited, but that the trial would take place in Nicaragua, and that the allegations would be different from those with which he was initially due to be charged with in the US. He was accused of femicide, which is a special type of hate crime in Nicaragua. It involves a premeditated attack on a woman who was involved in a romantic connection with the accused. After hearing the arguments of both the prosecution and defence, the judge would then reach a decision. There would be no jury in this case. Justice fell on the shoulders of this one decision maker. The prosecution said that Hayley willingly entered the residence with Orlando, and that he later attacked her and she passed shortly after their arrival. They had the suspicion that this happened whilst she was sleeping. Their argument was that he was hopelessly in love with her and that no one else could have her if he couldn't. They felt that he attacked her in a fit of jealous rage after she once more turned down the opportunity to be in a dedicated relationship with him. They believed that this rage had been growing since the incident with Kevin and slashing the tyres 6 months earlier. Video calls allowed the court to hear testimony from witnesses located back in the States. Some of Hayley's friends testified about Orlando's obsessive side when it came to Hayley. They described how he drove by and called the apartment, as well as how he slashed the tyres on Hayley's car. The CCTV footage from outside Orlando's home proved that he entered the home with Hayley, but did not take her with him when he left. The court was also informed about Orlando's actions in the basement, and the letter he wrote to his deceased dad. According to the testimony of pathologist Dr. James Terzian, Hayley passed due to compression of the neck. The prosecution said this was all because Hayley wouldn't go out with Orlando. It was the defence's argument that Orlando had absolutely no recall of what took place earlier that evening. They contended that Orlando's consumption of alcohol at the time of Hayley's passing caused him to suffer a momentary lapse into insanity. They only brought one witness, a psychiatrist, to testify to his mental condition. They could find no one else to speak in his defence. After taking a break for 90 minutes, the judge came back to announce the decision. The judge, Fabiola Betancourt, informed the court that she had reached a verdict that Orlando was guilty. She said that she believed that Orlando just could not accept that Hayley could make her own decisions and choose who she wanted to date. She gave the most severe possible penalty for the crime of femicide, which was 30 years in jail. Back in America, District Attorney Stephen Cornwell of Broome County, who was keeping a close eye on the proceedings, offered the following statement. The United States authorities were pleased with how everything was handled. It was a serious trial and not a show trial. In response to his conviction, Orlando filed an appeal. In Nicaragua, there were 3 magistrates who participated in the hearing of the appeal. The defense presented the same position as before. They also argued that Orlando was charged with murder in the second degree in the United States, and if he had been found guilty of that crime, he would have received a sentence that was less than 30 years. Consequently, they believed that the sentence should be reconsidered. Karen and Gordon Anderson, Hayley's parents, expressed their gratitude to the court for their efforts when it was announced that the appeal would be refused. Mother Karen said, "Thank you very much for not granting the appeal."
But I think that justice has been served to the best that it could have been. And if anything could come from Hayley's death, it is the awareness of the consequence that can be had.
I have not seen any remorse from him. I've only seen regret that he is not going to be able to lessen his sentence. Unfortunately, I don't even think 30 years is enough. Father Gordon believes that justice has been served and also thanked the court. Do you think this was the right punishment for Orlando? For more dark cases, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. To boost the signal of this case, please hit like on the video. Thank you to my patrons Karen Jones, Addy Alexander, David James, Jason Grout and Shane Woodward. Look after yourselves and I'll see you soon.